Hello, my name's Jim Putman. I'm the senior pastor here at Real Life Ministries, and across the way here is Jim Blazin, who is the campus leader for Real Life Ministries in the North. And we are blessed today to have here with us Lisa Arnold, who is the superintendent of Lakeland School District, and Lynn Pasley, who is the assistant superintendent of Lakeland School District. We're here today to share a little bit about our perspective as pastors who have been here for a long time. And to share with you guys some of the conversations we've had behind the scenes and the relationship that we've had behind the scenes with Lakeland School District. And we have relationships with Post Falls as well. And we're blessed in our area to have some amazing people in positions of leadership in the school district. And so I get the chance to maybe address some of the things that parents are hearing. We have a bond issue coming up, and one of the things that we care very much about as a church is that education happens. Super important. We have great homeschool parents in the area. We have great school district, in our opinion. We have some really good Christian schools and charter schools in the area as well. And but we wanted to share some of our perspective and let them have an opportunity to deal with some of the issues that are challenging for them as we get ready for a bond issue, as we deal with all that. We know that we have people in our area that are moving here from areas where it is not very parent-friendly. It's not friendly to the values that America has had, what we would call Christian values. And so what happens is when you listen to the national news and you're from places where these things are challenged on a daily basis, you assume that it's happening everywhere. And we want to reassure you that, there's people everywhere, so there's a problem waiting to happen. But we are blessed in this area. And so Jim and I wanted to sit down with you two and give you guys a chance to answer personally some of the questions that people have. And again, we live at a time where people are very fearful and frustrated, and rightly so, around the country. I mean, I live here in North Idaho because of my frustration where I came from in Oregon, and you, California, and we live here for a reason. And we wanted to share you with them. I mean, we know you. We want people to know who you are. We wish they knew who you really were versus what they think you are based on where they came from. So, Lisa, Lynn, let's just deal with some of the hot button issues, if that'd be okay. Is that all right?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Perfect.
One of the things that people are really concerned about right now is issues like parental rights. What rights do the parents have versus, around the country, it's like parents are told to shut up and will educate your children, and they're indoctrinating in many places, or it's allowed, and Christian voices aren't allowed. And so people are concerned about that. Share with us your view of parental rights.
Okay. I guess first I would want to say to anybody who's listening that we believe that a parent is a child's first and best teacher, and that we do our best work for kids when we work together. So in Lakeland School District, we've worked really hard to ensure that our parents have a voice in everything that we're doing. The legal term in a school setting is for teachers is in loco parentis, so in place of the parent. We are making decisions for kids in place of the parent when they're at school. That scares people right now in a way that it hasn't in the past because of some of the political divides and just some of these issues that are coming up. So we've actually worked really hard over the last several months to make sure that parents understood how many rights they actually have. So in Lakeland, we have a parent advisory group who read any supplemental curriculum that goes before the board for approval. That parent group, of which has grown to close to 20, I think.
About 25 now.
They get to go through every single library book that's going into our library, every supplemental resource that's going to be used in a classroom, and they get to give input to the board. And if there are any concerns, and oftentimes for library books, we have a parent who's really good at being very thorough in looking at reviews, but she will say up front, I haven't had a chance to read this myself, but based on this review, I wouldn't be comfortable putting it in the library until I've read it. And so the board has been really good to table those books until somebody can read the book and then come back and share their perspective. Parents have the option in our district to opt their kids out of any lesson that they are not comfortable with. And then they just meet with the teacher and they come up together with an alternative assignment for them, which allows the parents then to have the conversation that they want to have with the child around that topic at home. That conversation then aligns with their beliefs at home.
Lisa, a question on this maybe for you is like, what are the parameters that this team uses? Like, because we have CRT, we have all these hot topics right now. What have you instructed them? Like, what are they looking for when they look at curriculum?
We actually haven't given them any parameters because we really wanted it to be based on their feedback and have it open-ended. So there's definitely, when we're doing some of our big adoptions, so we're going to do an ELA and a science adoption this year. Last year we did a math one, and so we gave them parameters. We're looking at items that maybe are inappropriate or not age appropriate, anything with any kind of gender, sexual content that we just feel like is not appropriate for a school setting, and or things related to CRT. But in the monthly supplemental curriculum committee, if it raises concerns. So for instance, we had a parent that there was a library book and she just felt like there was a lot of environmental topics that maybe weren't necessarily appropriate. So that's what we want to hear. We don't want to guide it or instruct it or curtail it in a way that we're controlling it. It's just, what is your concerns? What are your feedback? And anybody, it's not just parents, it's community members. We have community members that on there that are affiliated with the school district, but not necessarily a parent any longer. They may be a grandparent. So we're trying to get as many people as we can just to give feedback. And so we do have a vetting process, and I send the list out monthly, and then they'll go through the list and then provide their feedback. And so then I present that to the board. And so then the board will, kind of sift through. We have additional parent rights. We have a policy committee. Every policy that gets reviewed and or changed, there is a survey that goes out for everybody connected to the schools that can give their input. And when we have the following policy meeting regarding that survey, they'll go line by line looking at each of those comments. And so are there pieces that maybe we didn't look at it through the correct lens, or it's a different lens, or it's a different way to look at it. So we have created over the course of the last year and a half several subcommittees where we're bringing parents and community members in to kind of filtered feedback, so that we are looking at every facet of the situation and trying to get as much information as we can, so we're making really educated decisions that are in line with what our community believes.
And I think it's important for our parents to know that one of the things that we've talked about a lot this year is that these precious little children and young adults that are in our schools are not our children. They are the children of the people of our community who are entrusting us to make good decisions for their kids and to teach them the things that they need to be taught to be successful adults.
Although we do love them, but they aren't ours.
They are not ours.
Yeah.
But that's a mindset. We've really had to be intentional about that mindset shift, that these are somebody else's children. And so our parents deserve to have an opportunity to at least have a conversation and say, I'm really struggling with, why are we teaching this in school? We're teaching reading. Do we have to teach kids how to read using a text that has some controversial content in it? No, we don't. We can teach kids how to read from books that are really high quality literature, like Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder. So it is kind of, the pendulum in education swings all of the time. And it in our district, it's definitely swinging back a little bit more to, let's just get back to the basics. let's teach our kids how to read, how to write, how to be critical thinkers
Mm-hmm.
and problem solvers, but it doesn't have to be controversial all the time.
It doesn't have to be political. They don't have to. I mean, you can't turn on the news anymore without hearing some of that. So we want school to be this safe place where they can still be children and they can learn all the things they need to learn. And we don't have to bring all of the societal issues into the school and feel like they have to be a part of that outside of their parent. Those conversations should be happening with their parents. And I mean, the other piece I think is super important is both, like, I have 3 boys. I have a junior in high school. My other 2 have now graduated. They went through Lakeland their entire career, and so Lisa's as well. And I mean, so we have really pushed to have what we want for our kids, we want for all kids. And so trying to create this environment that you want your kids to be in this place and you feel like it's a safe place for, you know, your children to be. Like, we're moms first aside from anything, and that's what we want the rest of our parents to realize. Like, we want those same exact things.
One of the things that I've appreciated over the years is we've been in partnership. I mean, we have graduation here with you guys every year at the high school. We make that available to you, or for the high school. We've been able to partner in a variety of different ways. And, you know, we live in a world where there is separation of church and state. And so we have to be careful. But I love the values and, you know, the traditional values that Lakeland, so many of the leaders come to our church and to many churches. I mean, you guys have said, no, we're not a Christian school, but we're going to have values that meet our community. And you have been a friend, rather than saying, you know, churches can't be involved here. I mean, there's boundaries we all have to live with in the culture that we live in, but the willingness to partner and work with and let us be a part of that as well, and to hold the values that I agree with, has been amazing. Tell me about, you know, your guys' view on the traditional values and where you guys stand on all that.
Well, I'm in my 32nd year in Lakeland. I started in 1991 as a first grade teacher, and one of the things that I found that I loved right away was that our school district serves a strong conservative Christian community. It always has. And those values resonated with me, and that's why I'm still there. And I actually moved my children into Lakeland so that they could attend school there, because I found so much value in what we do and how we do it. We start every year, and I don't know if other districts do this, but the week before kids come back to school, we have a welcome back breakfast for all 700 to 800 of our staff, and we start every year with a prayer. This year, actually, Corey Spear from Real Life led the invocation for us. It's just who we are. It's what we've always done. And if I were, as a superintendent, to not do that, I'd probably be driven out of town. It's important, because we're doing hard work. And so, you know, people ask me all the time, what can we do for you? And my response is pray. Pray that we do the right work for kids, because that's what we're about. And we just know that we can use all the prayer we can get. And so we start every year with a prayer. When I was a principal at Betty Kiefer, I had a parent, or a person, who was driving past my school. It was December. She didn't live out there. She didn't have kids in our district. But she called to thank me because on the reader board it said Christmas vacation instead of winter break. And that just really resonated and made me think a little bit more about it. It was just natural for me to put Christmas up there. But it did cause me to reflect that this is obviously something that is important. For somebody to stop and reach out and say thank you, that just really resonated with me, and it reinforced, you know, the community we serve. And I have always believed that a school district should reflect the values of the community that we serve. So in our schools, kids sing traditional Christmas hymns at Christmas programs, and they get to sing the fun Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph and those kinds of songs too. But we are serving a particular community, and I think we do a good job at reflecting those values.
We see this as a calling. I mean, we're not here we're here because we want to be here, and we recognize the precious nature of we get these kids for a certain amount of time, and we want to impart this great experience and positivity and alignment and in honoring the parents. They're giving us this opportunity to do this great work, and we take that really seriously.
Yeah.
So
Well, Lynn, you know, I've been friends for years. You know, you've been a part of our church, and it's difficult time with all the division and everything else, you know, and how to honor parents, even who may not be believers, but to honor those who are. And
they're still
what
moms
a
and dads,
difficult
and they still
time.
love their children.
And then the political side of all of it, and you know, so many parents. So we live in a culture that's, you know, the media and vitriol and you know, what a difficult time. And then, you know, things are being added nationally that this community doesn't believe in. And so, and then you've got government funding and state funding, and you know, a lot of people don't understand the bond part of all of this in our area, right? So explain why there is a bond.
So let me just clarify. We're a bond is a measure that we take out to patrons for a building. We're actually not doing a bond.
Okay, what are you doing?
We are doing a supplemental levy.
Okay.
So we have a supplemental levy on the books, which by law can only run for 2 years. It expires this year. And the Long Range Planning Committee, it will take a recommendation to our school board on November 9th.
This committee is made up of several patrons, community members, parents. There's probably 30, 35. There's a significant amount of patrons involved in giving input, and we've been meeting over the course of the start of this year. So I think we've met 4 different times at this point.
Yep. So they'll present their recommendation, which at this point is to just continue the levy that we have on the books without adding any additional
It's just existing
money. Recognizing that we have families that are struggling right now. Inflation is the highest it's been that I can remember. And I'm sure, you know, when I was little, it was probably higher, but that was a long time ago. And so the reason for the levy is that, and this is accurate for the majority of our school districts, the state funds about 75% of what we do with kids in a district. And the intention from the state is that our school districts have local control. So school districts can make the decision that we're just going to fund these very narrow kind of parameters that with the money we get from the state, and then that's good enough. In our district, our community has always wanted small neighborhood schools. And when you have small neighborhood schools, it costs more to run them because instead of having a large school where you can put, 30 kids in a classroom all at the same grade level, you have 2 5th grade teachers and, and maybe one year in 5th grade, you only have 20 kids in the classroom because that's how many are in that building. So it just costs a little bit more, but it does give the patrons the ability to say, this is what we value for our schools. And so the things in our district that our levy is funding right now is the small neighborhood schools, but we get no money from the state for any of our extracurricular or athletic costs. So, and we live in North Idaho, and all of the state tournaments tend to be in Boise. And so, we have Timberlake High School, which is one of the largest 3A schools in our district. And because they're one of the largest 3A schools, they go to state for everything. And that gets expensive. But it's important because those extracurricular things bring the community together.
Right.
And so that's been important to our patrons.
We don't even get money for all of our safety measures. So, we are one of the first schools that we have armed guards, we have SROs, and we have a lot of safe and security measures built into our schools. We don't get money for that. So
let me say it this way. The way our state sets it up is they pay about 75%. That's a downer, which means you'd have to exclude a bunch of other things. But the good side of it is you get to maintain more control at the local level than you would if the state paid for everything.
And that was by design.
Yeah. And so for me, I don't really want the state or the federal government deciding. I want local,
Right.
but that there's a cost to that.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I would say I'm one of those kids that I would have never graduated from high school had there not been the incentive of sports
Mm-hmm.
and extracurriculars.
It was your motivator.
Yeah, I mean, and and there are many,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that those extracurricular activities, because they were tied to your grades or, you know, there's just no way I would have done it. My kids wouldn't have done it. I mean, so many wouldn't, right? And the lessons that are learned, the team, the community support, all that. And so I'm totally for those things. And I actually like that we have more government support, though it does come with cost. I think the biggest concern is, again, people hear what's happening nationally, and they need to hear from you guys going, no, we aren't letting that happen. We are watching that. Now, the problem is that there's so many opinions about so many things. You know, that there's people are so divided. I mean, it's the same at church, you know, it's the same anywhere. Everybody's got an individual opinion, right? So you're never going to make everybody happy. But when it comes to working with you and seeing you guys from the inside out and what's really happening versus what's happening nationally, my confidence level, and I want everybody to know that, my confidence level is very high, that if there is going to be problems, because there's people involved, but when there's a problem, the heart behind it, the willingness to work through it, the willingness to listen, is been super high. The partnership level has been super high. Jim, I mean, would you say the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I guess one of the questions then, because we have such a great influx of people that have not experienced what we in our community have for some time now in the Lakeland district. You know, again, you at the beginning, Lisa, we're talking about just trust. We had a discussion about how do even people moving into the area, and then the people that have been here, establish a level of trust with you all from communication, so that when things come up that they read, or something is misappropriated, perhaps even in the media, that how do you guys respond in a way that lets people know, hey, we're aware of it, we have our own opinions on it. Like, that's the piece for me that if you could even communicate is how do you there's so many things evolving, if you will, in terms of media and what's coming into the area. How do you guys stay ahead of that tidal wave so that parents can trust that you guys are looking at it aggressively?
I think Lynn and I have been really good at responding quickly. So one of the things that is happening is parents are feeling a little bit more comfortable to come right to us with an email or a phone call with a question, which I appreciate, because what we were seeing prior to that was somebody would put something on social media and it wouldn't be accurate, but then everybody assumes now because it's in print that it's accurate, and you have a whole bunch of people who are upset. And so I really appreciate that people are taking the time to do some fact finding first and hear from us what we're doing. So I think for the people who are listening, this kind of is a great illustration of that. So last year, our board approved the use of iReady Reading as a supplemental reading text, because we are in the process this year of adopting a new reading program. And somebody put on Facebook, they had taken pictures of the text of one of the 5th grade stories. And as soon as I saw it, I realized, oh, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Because if my daughter had brought home that text, I would have had the same concerns that the parent did. So right away, Lynn and I reached out to the school board and said, we have an issue we've got to work through. So we did a curriculum workshop, and prior to that workshop, Lynn put out an email to parents and said, we need parent volunteers who are willing to read from cover to cover
Because some things slip by you, even though
Right.
you aspire to do it right. You
Right.
can't see every detail. So,
Right, exactly. So we had a group that read every book, kindergarten through 8th grade, cover to cover. And what we found through doing that is that the 5th grade book definitely had some flares of CRT, just in the way
It was subtle.
they were telling the story of slavery, but instead of just telling the story of slavery, they like the white man was in capitals, the black man was capitalized, so it looked like it was a proper noun, and it really called out the race part of it. But what we found through the whole K-8 was there was a lot of environmental type things, and they were very subtle, kind of undertones. It wasn't overt, but when you read cover to cover, by the time you were done, you felt like you'd gone to church and we should all just chain ourselves to a tree. Right?
And it was definitely leaning to one side.
Yes.
So
Yes.
had it given a different perspective, but it didn't. It was definitely
all slanted from one point of view. And so in this workshop, the board and Lynn, they're talking about what do we do with this? And I just was sitting back and I wasn't really saying anything because I was really thinking about everything that I had heard from the parents and what I had seen. And, for the last year, as people have moved into our area, or even on the national news, you see people complaining that public schools are indoctrinating kids to our leftist ideas. That's some of the language that's been out there. And I've been saying, no, we're not doing that in Lakeland. Our teachers aren't standing up and teaching those things. But what I realized in that moment was this is what they're talking about. When you just read a story after story, and the message is very subtle, it's not in your face, but by the time you're done, you've gotten the message. That's the indoctrination they're talking about. So in the middle of the conversation, Lynn was sitting next to me, and I looked at her and I said, "You're going to be mad at me, and I'm sorry. I need to recommend that we remove all of these materials from our classrooms. This is not appropriate." And it wasn't that Lynn liked the books, but it came with a diagnostic tool that helped us know where kids were with reading, that we were really lacking. And so
I'm a data person.
That
so
was
I'm
her
like,
concern.
how are we going to do this?
How do we make sure we know what kids are doing with regard to skill acquisition? But the board accepted my recommendation. They made the decision to pull all of those materials out of the classrooms. And we had paid a substantial amount of money for them.
But it was the right
the right thing to do.
But see, that's what I love, guys, is that so often we just ignore stuff if it goes against, the talking points, and the fact that you're willing to listen and hear what parents have to say. Again, I know I lead a big team. Stuff gets by me, and then people think it's personal or I did it on purpose, and I'm like, well, I didn't even see that. And you have a huge job.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you a few questions to kind of close this out. Number one, when it comes to gender fluidity, you're not allowing that in this school district.
No, in fact, our board is actually considering putting forward a resolution that those are conversations that need to be held at home with guidance from parents, and that that's not the place of the school because we have parents who are concerned about it. So just so our people who are listening are aware, there is a U.S. Supreme Court case where the Supreme Court found for a family, I think they were in Virginia, but it was a case where it was a transgender child, and I don't remember, a boy or girl, I don't remember, but they had requested that, let's say it was a transgender boy, that he have the ability to use the boys' bathroom, and the school district wasn't comfortable with that, so they said we will provide an alternate bathroom. And the parents took that all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found for the family. So there is a court case on the books that says that if the parents are in agreement with the child, at least that's our interpretation, then you must do what they're asking you to do. So in our district, and we do have some kids who are identifying as transgender, when that comes up to our principals right away are scheduling meetings with the parents and the student, and they're having a conversation about, in this environment, what will be best for your child. And in a lot of cases, we have parents who are saying, I'm adamantly opposed to this, and I do not want this. And we are, because they're underage and they're still, the parents are the guardians, we are honoring what the parent is telling us. In some cases, the parents are supportive of the kiddos, but then they're willing to work with the school district to come to a decision that kind of allows everybody to feel good about what we're doing. And so
you guys
it's
are in a
really
position where
partnering with parents.
It's difficult. You've
It
got our
is.
values, and then what's happening nationally is impacting the law, and it's a very difficult spot. But what I'm hearing you say is you're not promoting that. You're doing everything you can within the law to stick to the values that have been traditional and local.
Yes.
Well, and we want to safeguard all kids. And
Right.
so a lot of those conversations and dialogues, I mean, you're talking about 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds. They don't necessarily, they're not equipped to handle those conversations. So, I mean, they rightfully should be happening with parents. And so that's where we expect it to happen.
Yeah.
And so we're going to love on all kids. But some of those hot topic conversations and next steps really, I mean, it's not my child. It needs to be their parents directing that.
If a teacher were to have that conversation with a kid and promote that, in other words, say you might be this or you might be that, that's a disciplinary issue. That's not going to happen.
That is not going to happen.
Well, if it does,
it's a disciplinary
it's a
issue.
disciplinary issue. All right. So one other, go ahead.
No, I just was interested to hear. So that whole process, because you guys are talking at this level, but then you have a whole bunch of teachers, obviously, that are in the same world that we're all in, right? And digesting all this stuff. So what does that look like from a staffing perspective for your team? I mean, you feel like there's real alignment across the board on this in terms of staffing. I mean, obviously, you have some people that may not.
Right. Where we're united is we want to do our very best for every single child who walks through the doors of our schools. And the belief in our district is we do that best when we walk side by side with the parents. So if a child discloses to a teacher, I would rather you call me he instead of she, or, these are the pronouns I want to use. The teacher is alerting the administration, and then we are reaching out to parents and just saying, we'd like to have a meeting so we can best serve your child. Sometimes that's the first time parents are hearing this, and it provides an opportunity for dialogue. Sometimes the parents are aware, but it provides an opportunity for everybody to come together and make the right decision for the child. And that's really what we're about. We want to take care of all kids.
When it comes to CRT, when you figure out where it is and you're like, no, we're not doing that.
Well, it's illegal. It's illegal in Idaho.
The beauty of some of our systems, I'm a systems person, so when this kind of our ELA situation kind of fell through the cracks, it recognized there's a deficit in our system. And so we're doing our adoption this year for ELA and science a little bit differently because of that process. And so as parents bring things or highlight things, I mean, again, we're all human, there's going to be mistakes, but as things are brought to light, then we are trying to do wraparound services of like, where's the system, where's the breakdown, how can we do a better job to ensure that we are minimizing the risk of it, falling through the cracks. So for instance, this year when we do our ELA and science adoption, we're having parents read all of them. So I'm going to assign so many. I mean, we have several parents that are going to participate. And so before we ever put it in front of teachers, we're going to read it cover to cover so that it's not we really like this. And by the way, there's 2 stories in here that are controversial or problematic. So we always bring it back to the system of how do we ensure that we minimize that risk so that we don't have those kinds of issues, or we don't have situations where something's happening that we're unaware of.
Right. I do want to piggyback on that. So one of the things we recognize is that our mainstream school textbook publishers have to be marketable in all 50 states. And so no matter which one of those publishers we go with for an English language arts adoption, there will be problematic text. because they have to be marketable in our blue states.
Right.
And so we actually we're not looking at those. We are looking at homeschool curriculum to bring. So there are a couple. Heritage is one where they have a more traditional religious approach to education, but they have a public school version of their textbooks that we're looking at. And they are what I used as a first grade teacher in the early 90s, where it was just really wholesome literature, books that you could go into the library and pull off the shelf, kind of back to good lit.
Wow.
So
We've just kind of gotten out of the box with where we're
having to do
pulling
it differently.
resources, so that we're again trying to prevent.
Well, let me tell you where I'm at, folks. If you're watching this, I had a kid that was homeschooled. I had a kid that was in a Christian school, and I had a kid from public school. Each of those kids were different, could handle different things for different reasons, and I, even when my kids were homeschooled and in the Christian school, I voted yes on the levies. And here's why I did that. Education is important. Not everybody can homeschool and afford to do that. Both parents have to work. Not everybody can afford a Christian school. Would I love to have school choice at some point? Yeah, but even then, to have people that you trust in the public school sphere is a culturally important place for our people to be, and for kids that are there, they deserve a good education. They need to do extracurricular sports. It was important for me. This is the health of our area depends on our public schools.
That's right.
And so I'm voting yes. I have grandkids now. I live in Lakeland. I'm voting yes on the levy because I'm willing to support what's happening in the public school system because I believe in the people that are there. Now, are there school districts around the country where I wouldn't send my kids or my grandkids, that I'd rather quit my job and go homeschool than send my kids to those schools? Yep, there are schools in Idaho I wouldn't want my kids to be a part of, and I wouldn't do a video like this for. But the Lakeland School District is one I will. And I am going to vote yes for the levy, and because it's important, because these people are on the front lines and they're doing good work and I trust them. They have problems because of there's people. And there are all different kinds of people that they're trying to. I mean, nowadays to be a teacher means you have to be a social worker, an educator,
paramilitary.
I mean, what a problem. But I'm going to support the people that I trust and believe in, and I really do love the Lakeland School District principals, great friends, big time support people, and. So that's my view, and that's Jim.
Yep.
You have anything to add to that?
No. I definitely believe, as you said, that at the heart of any healthy community is the public school system. It has to be, and I think we have changing dynamics in our district, and I think that as we collaborate appropriately with one another, I mean, our goal as the church as well is to strengthen the family so that they can make good choices at home and navigate the complexity of our culture now. It's not easy for any of us, and we would solicit your prayers across the board, whether it's church or school.
And I want to kind of reiterate what you just said. Lynn and I this year have been very focused on meeting with all of our faith-based leaders within our school district, because you are serving the same families that we serve. And when we can work together, we can serve them better. So that's been...
What I love is your willingness to do that. I lived in a state where you couldn't... There was no conversation. You were out. They didn't care. They weren't going to listen. And for many of the people that came from those places, to assume that's happening here, it isn't. These people, when you call them, they call you back. They'll have conversations. There'll be some give and take because it's not just a Christian community they're serving, but man, it's been a breath of fresh air. And so I'm proud to say I I'm friends with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for
That's
spending time with us, and I
We
hope this helps
appreciate
our community and people make decisions.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your partnership. You guys really have been longtime partners for Lakeland, and we've done a lot of great things together. So appreciate getting to work with you.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.